Dubro Suspicion Files.
Let's dive into one of history's greatest cold cases. It's the incredible story of a massive civilization that was found, then completely lost, and then, for almost 500 years, dismissed as nothing more than a fantasy, and the whole thing was hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest. So the entire mystery really kicks off right here, way back in 1542. A Spanish friar, Gaspar de Carvajal, is traveling down the Amazon River, and he writes down something that, well, it just sounds completely made up. He describes a world that's not wild jungle at all, but a thriving, developed place with huge cities lining the riverbanks. And here's the thing. This is where the trail just goes ice cold, almost right away. When other Europeans came back, sometimes just a few decades later, those cities were gone. The roads vanished. There was nothing but small, scattered tribes and just endless jungle. So what's everyone supposed to think? The only logical conclusion was, the guy made it all up. And that right there, that's the big question we're trying to answer today. Was Gaspar de Carvajal just a brilliant liar, maybe trying to get famous with the Spanish crown? Or was he a witness to a complete catastrophe? The very last person to see an entire world just before it blinked out of existence. Okay, so our investigation has to start with Exhibit A, Carvajal's original report. What did he actually say he saw? Look, this wasn't some fuzzy, I think I saw something kind of report. Carvajal's chronicle was packed with specific, concrete details. He's giving numbers, descriptions, settlements that stretched on for 6 miles, structures he called gleaming white, extensive road networks, and huge areas of carefully managed farmland. I mean, this sounds less like a tall tale and way more like an official record. So for the next, 450 years, the official story is Carvajal lied. End of story. And then, in the 20th century, science comes along and delivers what everyone thought was the final nail in the coffin, arguing that a civilization like this was just flat out impossible in the Amazon. Now, first off, we gotta clear something up. It's super important to separate our eyewitness Carvajal from this other guy who kind of poisoned the well for everyone. You see, in the 1920s, this explorer Percy Fawcett went looking for his mystical lost city of Z. He had theories about Atlantis, you get the picture. He was a romantic, not a reporter. His story got so popular that serious scientists started to dismiss the entire idea of Amazonian cities as just pseudoscience. All right, so the official scientific smackdown came from Dr. Betty Meggers at the Smithsonian. In 1971, she published this huge theory she called the counterfeit paradise. Her argument was elegant and honestly pretty brutal. The Amazon looks rich and lush, but it's all an illusion. The environment itself, she argued, simply could not support large, complex societies. And her case was built on these 3 really solid-seeming pillars. First, the soil problem. It's acidic, it's nutrient-poor, it's just bad. Second, the food problem. With soil like that, you can't grow enough food surplus to support cities. And third, the protein problem. There are no large herd animals to hunt and eat. And for 50 years, that was it. Case closed, science had spoken. But then, oh man, starting in the late 20th century, new evidence starts trickling in. And it doesn't just poke holes in the verdict. It blows the whole thing wide open, reopening this cold case in the most dramatic way you can imagine. You know, the first clue that something was really wrong with that old theory was literally in the dirt. Scientists started finding these huge patches of something called terra preta, which just means black earth. And this stuff isn't natural. It's an artificial, man-made soil, a kind of ancient technology, engineered to be incredibly fertile. And the scale here, it's just hard to wrap your head around. We're talking about man-made soil deposits sometimes 2 kilometers deep. So these people weren't just living with the jungle's limits, they were actively re-engineering it on a massive scale. Okay, so the next piece of evidence, the real game changer, came from the sky. It's this incredible technology called LiDAR, which uses lasers to scan the ground, and it basically lets you digitally shave off all the trees and see the actual shape of the land underneath for the first time ever. And what they saw was just unbelievable. In Bolivia, suddenly these huge settlements appear out of the data. We're talking 70-foot-tall conical pyramids, massive defensive moats and walls, and these incredible raised causeways, like ancient highways, connecting everything for miles. And just when you think that's it, they point the LiDAR at Ecuador and find something even bigger and older. We're talking over 6,000 man-made mounds for houses, enormous farm fields, and a whole network of roads, some 33 feet wide, just like Carvajal described. The population for just this one spot is estimated at up to 30,000 people. That's comparable to Roman-era London. Suddenly, Carvajal doesn't sound like a liar at all.
So look, this new evidence does way more than just prove the cities were real. It forces us to ask a totally different, much bigger question. What is the Amazon rainforest really?
Check this out. A landmark study found that the kinds of trees that ancient people actually planted and farmed, like acai and Brazil nut trees, are 5 times more likely to be the dominant tree right next to these old settlements. Think about what that means. The wild jungle? It isn't wild. It's a garden, a giant overgrown, abandoned orchard. And this just shows you how huge the shift in thinking has been. Betty Meggers' theory, the old science, suggested maybe 1 person per square kilometer. The new LiDAR data, it shows us a single valley that was home to over 15,000 people, maybe as many as 30,000. The old model just doesn't work anymore. It's completely broken. And this leads to a conclusion that is, well, it's just staggering. The pristine wilderness that we've all seen in documentaries, the one we fought so hard to protect, it's not pristine. It's a ruin. It is the botanical ghost of a collapsed civilization, the largest living monument to a human apocalypse on Earth. Okay, so if the cities were real and the jungle is a garden, we have to solve the last piece of this cold case. Where did everybody go? Where are the millions of people?
We know who the killer was, or what it was. When the very first Europeans showed up, people, just like Carvajal's expedition, they brought something with them they couldn't even see. Old world diseases, smallpox, influenza, and for the people living in the Americas who had absolutely zero immunity, it was a biological apocalypse. The population collapsed by an estimated 90 to 95%.
And what's really mind-blowing is that this collapse was so huge, it was felt around the entire world. The Great Dying meant that farmland, roughly the size of modern-day France, was abandoned, almost overnight. As the jungle grew back, all those new trees sucked so much carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere that it actually helped cool the entire planet, kicking off what we now call the Little Ice Age. So, that's the case. We've presented all the evidence, right? From the 16th century eyewitness report that sounded like fantasy, to the 20th century science that called him a liar, all the way to the 21st century technology that proved he was telling the truth all along. The case of the lost cities is closed. They existed. But solving one mystery just opens up a bunch of new and, frankly, much more urgent questions. For over 2,000 years, these people built a world in the Amazon without destroying it. So the real question isn't about their past, it's about our future. In our own age of climate change, what can this ghost empire teach our own civilization about survival? That judgment, well, that's up to you.